to be on the forefront of things, you got to be the outsider for a little bit before you fit in. And it's okay if people don't get it. They'll get it eventually, and you'll bring them along eventually. But yeah, to your point, some people have to see it before they actually hop on the ride with you.
You're listening to the Black Directory Podcast, where we focus on bringing Black entrepreneur experiences to the forefront. Each week, we will discuss the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I'm your host, Diamond Young. Let's dive in. Today, you'll meet Donald Boone. He's a 3-time founder, self-taught coder, and the CEO of Boxedup, which is an on-demand equipment rental marketplace that is disrupting the $335 billion sharing economy. A biz tech leader with over 13 years of startup and Fortune 100 experience, Donald most recently led a team at Amazon's B2B marketplace, responsible for scoping, building, and scaling new solutions for customers. Donald is a Seat Pleasant, Maryland native and holds a mechanical engineering degree from North Carolina A&T State University, where he graduated in 2008. Donald currently resides in South Carolina, along with his wife, AJ, and children, Noel, DJ, and Bradley. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Donald Boone, founder of Boxedup, which is a content creation, equipment, and rental company that helps people take their creations to the next level. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Diamond. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. I love talking about my company, and I love talking about it with other Black people. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and again, I'm happy to have you. I think that you have such a unique product, and I don't think I've seen it before. Now that I'm really thinking about it, and I'm just excited. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it before. You know, we have our Airbnbs and we have our car rentals, but we don't have anything like this. And I'm sure you were thinking of it when you created it. It's like, wait, how do we not have this already?
Yep.
So it's really neat that you found like that gap, which is kind of what I think about with entrepreneurship, finding that opportunity to create something that we're missing. So I'm just excited for the listeners to learn more about Boxedup, learn more about how you created it, and just how they can get involved, whether it's on the consumer end or how they can make some money on the other end. So definitely. I wanted to know, can you just tell us a little bit more, of course, about you before we even get into Boxedup? Tell us about Donald Boone.
Oh, I don't know if we have enough time. That could be its own podcast. Where I'll start is born and raised Seat Pleasant, Maryland, and spent my entire childhood growing up in the hood hooping. You know, I thought I was going to be a basketball player early age. I was good for all the people out there. I was getting little MVP trophies in Little League. I was good. I ain't going to lie, I was good. But I grew up with people in my rec, same area, Kevin Durant. And, you know, when you stop growing at 5'11", 6 feet, and you see 7-foot dudes going to college, you learn very early that you're not cut out for that. So I decided early in high school to pursue science and tech, and then went to North Carolina A&T, majored in mechanical engineering. And
Aggie Pride.
And since then, majority of my life in corporate America, I thought I was going to retire a corporate executive and do entrepreneurship on the side. But that's always been sort of my lifeblood and something that I've done on the side. And now just starting to devote a little bit more time into it than I did before.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a chance to speak before, and I know that you mentioned that you were working since you were 15, since you could get a worker's permit. Would you say that you have a hustler's spirit?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think just to talk about that piece, because we didn't have a ton, and it wasn't because, you know, my parents didn't try. My mom was a hustler. My father was a hustler, but he didn't have a job since I was the age of 3. So like ever since I was the age of 3, he sort of battled with depression, battled with drug abuse. So he was really in and out of work. So really being a hustler was out of necessity. Like, we just didn't have a lot. And I got tired of asking my mom for money. So I decided super early on, like, look, man, the second I get an opportunity and I can make my own money and I can stop asking my mom for stuff, I'm going to do it. So I got my worker's permit. I was like 15. I think it was, I couldn't even drive. So it was like 15 in a few months. And like my mom was like shuttling me from like one job to another. One summer I had 3 jobs. I was a ticket taker at RFK Stadium for all the people back home. I worked at a restaurant, Uno Pizzeria, and then I had a little science and tech job over the summer as well. So, I mean, really from day one, I was hustling. In high school, I was the dude selling burnt CDs. I'm sorry for all of the CD companies. Don't come after me. Don't sue me. I don't got no money. But I was doing everything, man. I was selling my mom's leftovers. I was selling gummy worms at school. I literally, anything to make money, I would absolutely do it for sure.
I was just going to ask you, like, okay, everyone that's a natural hustler, did you ever sell candy? But you're selling leftovers, so that's like totally different.
That's the next level.
And that's when parents are like, hey, what? I thought we had some more in the fridge.
Right.
No, Mom, we ate that. That's gone.
I started getting my mom to cook extra because she got hip to what I was doing. And she was like, I could throw in an extra couple wings. I was like, bet. Throw in a couple extra. I'm going to eat a little bit less. And boom, that's our market. So, like, look, that cafeteria food nasty? Bow. Here you go. Fried chicken. It's all yours.
It was so nasty. Oh, my goodness. But that's so cool to be in sync with your parents. You know, I talk about it often. I know people with 2 different, I mean, it's multiple stories, but you have people where they are the only entrepreneur in their family or that mindset. And then it's families where, hey, we're all on one accord. It's like we're aligned. We're synced up in that sense. So it's kind of cool that she was already like with the program.
She's super supportive, and she's not an entrepreneur, which is the crazier part. That's not naturally who she is. She is not a risk taker. But I think where she was awesome was recognizing what I needed as a child of hers. Yeah. I needed support in my entrepreneurial spirit. So she supported me from day one. She's my first investor in Boxedup, outside of my wife investing in time. But yeah, Mom Dukes from an early age has been supporting this habit I got.
That's amazing. And I noticed you said that she wasn't a risk taker. So for you, was it someone that you seen growing up where it's like, oh, wow, they're taking risk? Or do you think it was just natural? Like it's just something that was just, I'm going after it and I'll figure it out when I get there and we'll just see how it goes? Or do you think that you were influenced with the risk taking side from somewhere else?
That's a great question. And it sort of reminds me of this sort of common battle of like, are you a born entrepreneur or is it a learned trait? Yeah. And I'll definitely say, I really hadn't thought about it until you asked me. No, there wasn't a person that I looked to who was a natural risk taker, natural entrepreneur. I didn't have a lot of examples of that. Now, what I'll say is, you know, I would pick up Forbes and Fortune, even at a young age in high school, and see a lot of people on the cover who were creating companies out of their garage, but I couldn't necessarily relate to that. So I think a lot of it was natural, it was sort of born out of necessity. And then I just sort of had this natural entrepreneurial spirit, but we weren't even using words like entrepreneur back then. I just thought like, that's just what you did, right? And then it's not until like later, I'm like, yo, like, it's people out here making their whole lives. It's people not going to college, and this is what they do. I'm like, why did I ever go down this path? It's just, it was never an option for me. And I get why. I think what my mom and my parents try to instill in me is work hard, get your degree, you go out, you make money, you retire, and you live your comfortable life. And that's how they grew up. They grew up sort of protecting that nest egg and what they worked so hard and their generations to get. And I finally think like we're some of the first generations of people of color, at least, to wake up and be like, nah, there's other ways to get the bag. Like you got options. You can go to work or you can go out and create your own. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to sort of wake up early enough and make the pivot sort of mid-career into the entrepreneurial side.
So with that being said, in hindsight, now that you're in this place you are in the present, do you think that college really had an impact? Like, do you think you would have kind of ended up in the same place, or do you think like, no, I could have just opted out, opted out of that and just figured it out? Like, what do you feel about your college education as far as the role that it played? And do you think if you didn't go that you would still have found it boxed up?
You got all the heavy questions on me today, Diamond. I think college was necessary. However, I don't think it's for everyone, or should be for everyone, or should be forced upon people. So for me, what college did, and what specifically going to A&T and what HBCUs do, is they give you this level of confidence that by the time you graduate, can I curse on this podcast?
Yes.
Awesome. By the time you graduate, you like, I'm the shit. And I don't care what you say. I can wear a fitted hat. I can wear whatever I want to wear, and I will still be amazing. And I think I needed to have that. I mean, I had confidence at an early age, but I don't think I was as firm and confident in who I was as a black man, and as a complex black man, and as a man right now who cries, and I don't feel shame in that. But when you go to somewhere like an A&T and you go to this like pool of just all these amazing black people, you're like, oh, and so you got like the athlete black people, you got the hood black people, you got the nerds, you have all this amazing spectrum of yourself that you didn't know existed until you were dropped in there. So I think for me, that experience was invaluable. I think I absolutely needed that. But everything that I'm highlighting isn't necessarily things that I'm highlighted in the classroom, right? Like the classroom stuff was, I think, work ethic. But even now, to this day, in my company and even in my professional career, I really haven't used a lot of the stuff that I've learned in the classroom at work or at Boxedup. Now, that's not to say that you won't, because I know a lot of people that do. But specifically for me, no, I don't use the classroom, but I do definitely use the social items and some of the tools that I picked up during that 4-year period.
Yeah, and it's interesting because for me, and you're on the tech side as well, as far as the corporate tech world, and a lot of these CEOs, their path is unique as well, or I don't know. I feel like I've been exposed to so much being in tech, just seeing every path is not the same. Of course, you have different races and different factors and things like that, of course, but you're really learning it as you go, like in the workspace, you're figuring it out. And a lot of these leaders, they didn't always go to college, or they just invented something with their friends in a garage, like we were kind of talking about. And I think that's interesting as well.
They learn by doing. They learn by doing, and by messing up, and by making mistakes. And what I've recognized about our people and our ancestors, we didn't necessarily have the resources or the leverage or the backup plan or the safety net to make mistakes, to make risks. A lot of first generation people, you can't mess this up, Susie, because mama ain't got no money, and we emptying out our bank account to send you to school. So when you kind of grow up with that mindset, you take less risk. So I 100% get it. But yeah, to your point, once you start getting exposed to people who have made their careers off of jumping from company to company and taking risk and building stuff and failing, you're like, whoa, like it's an amazing world, and it's pretty eye opening once you see it.
Even what you were saying before about, your mom being an investor in your company, or say if it was family or friends, or that's a battle within itself too. It's like, why are you doing this thing? Why are you going this way? And even with going to college in general, you have a lot of students that would say, I have to choose engineering, law, medicine. Like it was pretty much already set up for them of what you're going to do. Like, hey, when you get to college, this is what you're going to do. You have these options. So it's interesting when you try to color outside of the lines, finding that support, whether it's just regular support of like, hey, I got you, I'm showing up, I'm buying your product, I'm going to repost, or financial support as well. So it's just such trial and error, and really just going on your own path, even if many people aren't on that path. So did you run into that at all as far as your friend group? Were you kind of the only one just having that hustler spirit, or was it just a spectrum with your friends?
Yeah, I would say it's changed over time. I think to the point of being forced into a decision on what to do and what to major in. I majored in engineering specifically because it paid some of the most money. I remember distinctly, like I'm good in science and math, and I remember Googling what majors pay the most money, and it was engineering, and that's literally how I chose because like money was what I needed. And I was along a group of people who all pretty much all thought the same. Like we were in school for a lot of the same reasons. Still at that point, didn't know a lot of entrepreneurs. But even if I went back previous to that, like middle school, a lot of kids I went to middle school with, they weren't about like school and scholastic aptitude. Like I was riding to school from my neighborhood, and then like all of my friends would go that way, and then I would go the other way to the tag class, and it'd be like me and like two other black people in a room full of white people, and I just got comfortable with it, right? And then you go to A&T, and then it's sort of the same, right? But like, all right, everyone looks like me, but now I'm the person who's an engineer, and now I'm taking classes in the business school, and I'm kind of an outsider. So then you kind of just get comfortable being an outsider. And I would say even taking the leap entrepreneurially, there are a lot of people who look at me and like, bro, like you tripping, you leaving where? To do what? How much money you leaving on the table? Like it's just it's being an outsider again, and kind of just being comfortable. Like, yep, sometimes you got to swim upstream and take some risk, and people might look at me funny the first couple of months or the first couple of years, but they'll get it and they'll come around, and that tends to always happen too.
Black Directory wants to hear from you. We're now accepting questions and topics that you would like to hear us cover on the podcast. Check out our show notes to see how you can submit a question, or feel free to slide in our DMs. Back to the episode. And that's interesting too. Things always come full circle, and I've experienced that as well, to where it's like, you know what, you may not get it now, but you'll get it at some point. Or even that whole notion between like when to tell people about what's going on, and you kind of have your like inner circle of, okay, they may really be on this ride for real, like next to me, and knowing just way more details as it's happening. And then getting comfortable, like you said, getting comfortable with, it's okay if everyone isn't like here with me as far as my vision, and knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or sometimes you're telling people and you're excited, you're going on your rant, and they're just like, okay, that's cool. That's
Let me know how that go, girl. You do you, boo? And on the inside, they're like, should I tell her, or do she need to find out on her own? Right.
Yeah. And just getting comfortable with everyone's not an automatic believer, or at least that's where I'm at now. Like everyone's not just, they just don't get it. And it doesn't even mean they believe or don't, but they just have to see it. Some people just like, I need to see what you're even talking about for me to really understand why you're doing it. And I think it's really getting to that stage of being okay, being alone, or, just whatever it looks like. It may be a small group that supports you, but like, hey, I'm on this path. I know why I'm doing it, and it'll make sense later.
Yeah.
Just sit there. It'll make sense.
It might not connect now. And I relate a lot to, and I know he's controversial right now, but Kanye West. And I listen to a lot of Kanye, and you listen to a lot of his lyrics. He was an outsider, and you talked about coloring out of the lines. He's got a line about coloring outside of the lines and trying to break into different industries and feeling like the outsider. And yeah, a lot of times to be on the forefront of things, you got to be the outsider for a little bit before you fit in. And it's okay if people don't get it. They'll get it eventually, and you'll bring them along eventually. But yeah, to your point, some people have to see it before they actually hop on the ride with you.
Agreed. So let's take a little turn and talk more about Boxedup. So, I always like to dive into the past and kind of just seeing where your mindset is and how it has developed over time. But what made you come up with Boxedup? What was it that, the light bulb went off and it's like, oh, wow, I need to do this. I need to make a move on this.
Yeah. So in the way I like to describe Boxedup is the Airbnb for stuff. And I think it occurred to me long before I ever put anything down on paper and actually started to build the product. I was actually, to bring it back to my mom for a sec, I got out of school, I had a job, but I wanted to save money. Surprise, surprise. So I moved back into my mom's basement. So I'm in my mom's basement, and I'm like, I want to do something really nice for her. I'm gonna redo her living room. And I'm a little handy. I was a mechanical engineering major, so over the next like 3 months, I would go back and forth to Home Depot, and I bought all these tools, all of this stuff that I just didn't need. And like, I constantly kept asking myself, like, man, I'm sure somebody around the corner that got this same drill that I'm about to buy, and I don't need to buy. I just need to borrow it for like a couple minutes, and then I'll give it back. But that didn't exist. And then as I started to go on over time, I was talking to a homeboy of mine. He said, yeah, he's in the film industry. His name is Damo. He went to A&T. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people, we rent stuff for a lot of the jobs that we're on for these big video shoots. And I'm like, wait, so y'all rent stuff? Like, how does that work? It's like, yep, we don't buy it. We just rent it. And that's how we do business. So Boxed Up is this idea that you can access, is providing people with access. There are people all around the world who have things that they don't use a lot, seldom used items, and they don't have an opportunity to monetize those items. Platforms like Turo let you monetize your car, rent your car out for money. Airbnb, monetize your home, monetize your room. But where do you go for stuff? There is no place, and the goal for Boxed Up is to be that one destination to do so.
And that's why it's so amazing, because it's like when you hear of these ideas, it seems simple, but it's not, because it didn't exist. And it becomes more of an annoying thing, even though you can't put your finger on it as a consumer, of like, oh, I really don't feel like going to Walmart or Best Buy or wherever to buy this thing for this one time. I don't know really how long I need it, or I may need it for this one day. And I think some of the best ideas come from just conversation, really. You're just talking to someone about an issue or a problem, or it's really identifying a gap in the market, and then pretty much the light bulb is off from there.
Yep.
So how was it? Like, okay, so you had the idea. It's like, oh, wow, I see an opportunity here. What were the steps after that? Because you were still working full time at your job. So how did you balance creating this new thing and, your responsibilities with your day job?
Yeah, I think it can be difficult. I think, to go back to one of the things that you said earlier about sharing your ideas. So I didn't share it to a ton of people at first. I do think that there's power in building up your own confidence. Everybody has their own timeline for when they're comfortable with like voicing their ideas and opinions to other people. Mine happens to be a little earlier right now, but I wasn't always like that. And I'll give you an example. What's helped me with Boxed Up is failing at my first startup. So we talked about risk, we talked about failing and having the opportunity to fail. I launched a startup, and I hired a development firm to do it. We worked on it for 6 months. I cashed out part of my 401k. I spent over $50,000. I've written about it, so all of these numbers are public, but basically nearly $100,000 to make something. And I thought it was perfect. 6 months in, I take it out, and nobody wanted to use it. And what it taught me was, look, you got to move fast, and you got to get your ideas out of your head and into the real world as quickly as possible. So to your original question, how do you go from idea to actually doing? I put some artificial timelines on myself. I said, Boone, you will release this in 100 days or less. Don't sit around. Don't over invest. Don't spend too much time on it, because it's just a guess.
That's hard.
It's so hard, man. It's one of the biggest pains I have now, but you have to do it so freaking often that you got to force yourself into being uncomfortable. Like, oh, it's a little ugly and I don't like the font right here, but I'm gonna just do it. So I started, it wasn't perfect, but I started listening to stuff that I had in my house. I had a Sonos speaker, I had a drone that I didn't use, and a 3D printer and some drills. And I said, you know what? Boom. I'm going to spend a couple $1,000s because I got a little bit saved, and I'm going to whip together this site on Squarespace. And I found a rental platform, and I threw it up. And literally, I got it out the door in about 100 days from the time I put it down on paper. And it's been a fun ride ever since.
Yeah, I know we had a chance to talk before, and you said that you should be embarrassed by your first product. Again, that's so hard, being a perfectionist, or you don't even have to be a perfectionist, but you just you want to have what's the best foot forward and make it your best and try your best. And sometimes it just doesn't feel like, yeah, I guess a perfectionist basically is coming back around to that.
Yep.
But how did you get to that point where it's like, okay, how do you release an imperfect product?
Yeah, I'll credit the quote. So I actually got it from Reid Hoffman, who founder of LinkedIn and PayPal. But he said it, and it really stuck with me. It's like, you should be embarrassed by your first product, and if you're not, you've released it too late. And
Mhm.
what it tells you is, it forces you to take a step back and say, if you're not embarrassed by it, you've done a couple things wrong. That means you sat with it too long. And that means that you've tried to make it perfect before getting it out to public. And it's also an acknowledgement that you have merely a hypothesis of what you think will work, and your customers will ultimately tell you what they want and what will work. Customer traction, customer money, dollars, money, time. People spending time and spending money in whatever it is that you build will tell you if it's the right thing. So by getting it out early, it helps point you in the right direction. Like, I think I'm on the right path. But then once you start getting actual customer feedback, they'll point you into the direction of the actual pain points. And now your hypothesis starts to really crystallize. And you say, okay, I was right about these two things, but I was dead wrong about these five. So I'm going to spend more time on these two and double down in that area. Oh, that worked even more better than I thought it would. All right, now we're going to double down some more, and then you start to invest. But it is hard. You got to get out of your head. You got to get
Mhm.
uncomfortable, and you got to know. Like, I look back at my previous work, like, man, this shit's ass. This sucks. But by doing that, I can look at my growth and say, I'm happy I did it when I did, because I wouldn't have been able to grow had I waited.
Yeah, it's like you're really failing forward, but it really is all to build you up, and it's just it's really more data, it's really giving you more data to know, like you said, what works, what doesn't, and that kind of just is all going to strengthen what you're working on anyways. But really, it just makes me think about just that validation phase, and some people skip it, but it just comes back to bite you in the ass later. But
It
it's like,
does.
okay, have I really is this a proven idea? And like you said, validating it without going broke basically is
Yeah,
the smartest thing to do, because sometimes you're validating it and then it's like, oh, I have nothing else to even pivot
I
in the
don't have anything left.
direction. I don't have anything left. So how do you propose that people can find their place in the market? What's the best way to test it out and make sure that they have a good thing on their hands?
Yeah, I think that this is where I do think founders of diverse backgrounds, particularly Black founders, have a little bit of an edge, because you are forced into being as lean as possible, and kind of preserving your capital and making sure you're making smart decisions while still failing forward, like you said, and making some mistakes. So what I like to tell people to do is try to sell, to your question, try to sell before you even have a product, before you've even built it. Try reaching out to prospective customers. You think that you're targeting this customer? Okay, try to get a meeting with them, pitch them, build a landing page. Build a landing page about what you're gonna deliver, or about what your app will do, or about what your platform will offer, and just sell the landing page. All right, how many people signed up? How many customers signed up? Okay, you talk to some customers. What do those customers like about what your idea is? And it sounds insane, but everybody has some version of that. For Boxedup, we would often list things that we did not have. I would list stuff on the site. I ain't got that, but I listed it. I don't know if anyone's going to buy it. And sometimes people want to rent it. And that's a customer giving me a signal that I actually do want to rent your product. So whatever field you're in and whatever it is that you're building, there's some version of doing that. But trying to get a bit ahead of customer demand before you even have the product, and then kind of backing into the right product after customers have told you, yeah, you're on the right path. Keep going that direction.
Yeah, I love that. It's like getting your feet wet. It's like a temperature check or a pulse check. You're just trying to see kind of how people are reacting without again going too broke or putting everything out there. And you're really just pivoting and seeing which direction makes the most sense for you to go. And, I know that you work for Amazon, and I know that had to have been a playground for you as far as ideas and seeing like, wow, this is a huge marketplace, and you get to see firsthand, front row seats into how that demand works and what customers are asking for and just how they react to the market. So what role did that play as far as inspiration and creativity?
No chance I'd be here had I not worked at Amazon. I think it was invaluable in the sense that it taught me firsthand, here's how marketplaces work. Here are the KPIs that we track to make sure customers are happy, to make sure sellers on the other side are happy. Here's how we create things from scratch. Everybody has an idea. It's not just management has an idea. You got a good idea? Cool. You write a paper. They call it doc writing at Amazon. It's not PowerPoint presentations. People literally write a 2-page paper like you in college, and then you present it to people to kind of debrief on your idea and pick it apart. So when you see innovation done at that scale, and you're not talking like millions of dollars, like you're kind of getting fussed out of the room if it's not $1 billion opportunity. So you learn to think big, but you also learn how to start small. Keep the vision big, but always start as small as possible. Yep, we're going to take over the world eventually, but right now we're just going to take over this part of the street. And then from the street, we're going to advance to the block, and then the county, then the city, then the state, then the country. And then before you know it, it's massive. Bezos started selling books. You could buy anything on Amazon, but the vision was always the everything store, but he started something small and just slowly over time built his way up.
Yeah, and it's that story is always inspirational because, for one, most of us are Amazon consumers. Everyone is either heard of Amazon, bought something off of Amazon, or something of the sort. So I definitely wanted to touch on that for a little bit. But how do you know when it's time to transition into the full-time entrepreneur route? Like we've talked about, everything that led up to this point, and you've had this idea and you validated your market and your audience, and you're like, okay, this is working. I can do this. How did you know when it was time to make that leap and that transition?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I just got finished talking to someone about this the other day, and where you will know, you'll know if you're a person of religion. I pray, and God will show me the signs of what I need to do and reveal to me what's next for me. But I remember talking to another entrepreneur, and I was telling him about Boxedup. And then I asked him, like, do you think I should leave my job to go do it? And he said, if you got to ask, then the answer is no. And I was like, man, he wrong. He don't know what he's talking about. And then it didn't land on me for another couple months. I was like, yeah, he right. I wasn't ready. But now that I'm going through that same thing, it's a no-brainer to me. I can't afford to stay any longer, because now every minute that I don't spend on Boxedup, that's time not spent scaling exactly what it is that I want to do, that I feel like I'm placed on this earth to do. And I feel like the opportunity is massive. So like literally, I get anxiety at night because I'm like, there are 100 things that I want to do tomorrow, and I want to do them right now, but like forcing myself to calm down and just one step at a time, So you'll know a more specific answer, because I know everybody's going to be like, man, BS. Like, all right, how am I going to do it if I don't got no money? So it looks different for everyone. Full transparency, I got a wife and 3 kids. So my jumping off point looks a lot different than other people's. I had to work longer than I realistically wanted to, because I needed to build up enough money and enough savings so that wifey feels comfortable, so that kids are cool, that our lifestyle won't have to change too dramatically. But daddy still got time to do his thing. For other people, I always tell young entrepreneurs, man, fresh out of school, don't do nothing. Don't buy nothing. especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, try to live as broke as possible and go
Yeah.
crazy on everything, because that is your opportunity before you have all of those responsibilities to sit in a lab and create and make stuff and do all of the wild testing that you want to do, especially if you have a day job to fund it, because it'll never be easier than it is at that point. Now I'm fighting with two hands tied behind my back, so I'm kind of fighting with my feet, but I've learned to get scrappy, and I learned to be good at it. But it doesn't always have to be that way for everybody.
No, I love that. I was just talking with someone recently about even just cultural differences, but in the US, it is that feeling of how do I describe it? Like when I graduate, I need to live on my own, be able to afford this apartment on my own. We're just ready to go. We're ready. Like just the thought of going back home is like, why would I do that? I'm going to do everything I can do to not do that. But if I could go back, I probably would do things differently. Especially like you said, if you have that entrepreneurship spirit and it's something that you really want to work on. Or, I mean, now it's different. A lot of people can work remote now. And it's like, wow, I really could go back home, work remote, and just really come out with great savings and a plan and get things together. But I definitely agree with your advice. I think that if you have that opportunity to save more and take your time, and especially if you have that support, like you have a family that's like, I'm cool, take your time. They're not like, all right, time is ticking. What's going on? So
Right.
yeah, I think that's really solid
And society
advice.
puts some of those pressures on you too. It's like, look, man, you don't gotta have your own spot. Like you'll be all right. And
Social
yeah,
media.
it will. So if you can resist that, and to our earlier points, like be uncomfortable, you'll be better off for it.
I think so too. So we're gonna wrap it up soon, but I just wanted to leave off on the question of what's next for you. Let's we're excited to hear more about Boxedup. I can't wait to see what happens. But what's next for the end of the year? We're like right in that middle where we have 6 months left, 2 more quarters. So what's next for Boxedup?
Whew. So I'm gonna put some of this on wax, because I want to listen back to this and know that I brought this to light. But for us,
Okay.
it's more one thing for me to go full time, but it's another thing for me to build a team. And I think what's most exciting for me is seeing other people see me excited and then wanting to jump on the train too. So haven't announced it yet, but there are some other people that'll be joining me full time along the ride to help build Boxedup. And then closing out our pre-seed round, raising some venture capital dollars. We've raised some money from friends and family, but the next step from us is really raising VC money so that we can build the team and continue to scale. And specifically for Boxedup, what's to come, there's a world, if we fast forward 5 years from now, we'll be able to go to Mexico and rent a jet ski and do it all from your phone. And you'll be able to rent it from Boxedup. I see a world where anything that you need will be at your fingertips in a moment's notice. Boom, bet you booking an Airbnb, you about to go to Fiji, cool. And your Airbnb checkout, you'll see an opportunity to rent a drone and rent a underwater GoPro for your trip, and it's gonna be that seamless. So that's where we're going, and I'm just excited to get there as fast as possible.
That means we're gonna have to bring you back. We have to do a part 2.
We'll do the part 2.
Remember everything you said. Here we are. You heard it first here. And I'm excited. I'm personally excited to see what's next for you. That is such a huge leap to leave your job and to build a team. Building a team, that's exciting on its own. It's like people that are just as excited as you are to join on and follow your vision and your leadership. So I think that's already by itself super exciting. And I can't wait to see just how everything unfolds. So let everyone know where they can get more information on Boxedup and where they can find you.
Yeah, so it's tryboxedup.com, TRYBOXEDUP, tryboxedup.com. And I always give out my personal email, Donald@tryboxedup. I'm not hard to find at all. I suck on Twitter, so definitely don't at me on Twitter because I won't respond. But pretty much anywhere else, email is always best. I'm in there all day. Reach out if you got questions. I try to be as accessible as possible.
Awesome. Awesome. And you can also find him in the Black Directory app, and we'll have all of his information in the show notes as well. So you'll be able to just click on it and check out his website and Instagram and all the important links. And be sure to check out his website, whether you're a consumer and you want to rent something. It's going to be the perfect place for you. And if you want to be on the other side and see how you can rent out your products,
Make
if you have
some money.
good if you have some good products at home, you'll be able to find more information there as well. And any last words, Donald?
Do it scared. That's the last thing that I'll say. Do it scared. Whether it's leave your job, start your company, post that post, turn in your 2 weeks. Do it scared. You'll be thankful for it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all your insight, and we can't wait to see what's next for you.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Diamond.
Thank you for spending some time with us. Enjoying the show? Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating and review. Interested in connecting with Black-owned businesses and joining the family? We got you covered. Download Black Directory in both the iOS and Android app stores. Until next time.